I'm Erin Lawler Patterson, the Goodness Chick. I'm an addictions counselor, motivational speaker, author, and parent coach. Join me on the journey of navigating the joys and pitfalls of life, addressing parenting, giving back, mental health, addiction, and relationships. If it takes a village, then join me as one of those villagers. Villagers wanted. So we hear the word post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Hear ADD, anxiety, depression, bipolar, the list can kind of go on. And automatically with those terms, we have thoughts. We have different ideas of what those things consist of, which is okay, but it's also not okay because over the years, working with so many different kids where they've been given a label, some look at it as being liberating. I finally have an answer for something. And many others see it almost as a life sentence, something that defines who they are. This is me. And I think it's so important that we're careful when it comes to that, whether we as listeners have whatever type of mental health issue, or we have a loved one. Okay, that would, for those listening, that would be 100% of us that would know someone that is struggling with some form of mental health issue. It's life. But what we need to be really careful of and keep a balance of is not allowing labels to box someone in and create their identity. And especially with so many young people where they hear certain terms and it's, this is what I am for the rest of my life. And I was really encouraged. I spent some time at the European conference for mental health. It was awesome in Split, Croatia. And I had the opportunity to sit down and chat with Susanna Mittermeier, who was a dynamic individual. She was one of the keynotes there. And her chat, her focus, her platform really kind of encouraged me where it's allowing dialogue, allowing more questions instead of, and listening. Dude, I think we stink at listening to what someone's struggling with, what is going on with them instead of just kind of adhering to just a label, because so many times that can kind of strap us in and limit us. And it's kind of like empowering each and every one of us that it's to enhance the possibility, the potential instead of the disability. So really how we look at everything out there, it's more possibility instead of a disability. It's kind of like one of the things she had thrown out there that I loved. It's what if every problem is looked at as a possibility? And I think, mental health is super layered and can be very complicated and it's not, there's no instantaneous anything. But I believe if we allow everyone we come across, okay, it's not about having a counseling session with everyone we come across, but being more open-minded, being more kind of, I'm going to say, judge-free zone, whether you're a clinician, whether you're a parent, whether you're a sibling. Too often we put people in boxes, and when that happens, it removes so much potential for getting to know that person. It removes so much potential on that person's individual's part where they're feeling like, this is who I am because I'm being told who this is who I am, instead of this is a part of me, doesn't define me, and what are ways that this can be used to enhance who I am. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. I think and labels can kick the living heck out of us. And I do believe if we can fight for trying to be judge-free, we can fight to try to work on the process of learning. Man, it's a skill, it's an art to listen instead of thinking about what we're going to say. Dude, I think so many of us are guilty of this, thinking what we're going to say before the person on the other end is finished even communicating with us. So we really haven't heard everything they have to say. So this is kind of like the focus of today's episode. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. The more we dialogue, the better off we are. I encourage you, if you have not subscribed to Goodness Chicks podcast, subscribe, rock out a review. I would really appreciate it. And check out the new website, goodnesschick.com. Thank you for listening. Again,
totally pumped to be part of the Mental Health News Radio Network, and I'm wishing you an epic day. All right, so today I am excited to have my guest with me, Susanna Mittermeier. We are taping in Split, Croatia, which is exciting. Susanna, you are a licensed psychotherapist, author of best-selling Pragmatic Psychology, the practical tool for being crazy happy. You attended the university in Sweden. I had the privilege of hearing you as one of the keynote speakers today at today's conference, and I was kind of blown away by you kind of turning mental health and psychology a little bit upside down, a little bit, if you will. When you read the title of your book, if you were to explain to your listeners what that upside down mentality is, what is it?
Yeah. So it's basically where you turn every wrong into a strong, where you turn every disability into an ability. And we're so used to looking at what's wrong about us. And we are so great many times at judging ourselves, judging somebody else, and putting ourselves and each other's into boxes, categories of, in everyday life, we do it by, I like this, I don't like this. This is a good decision, this is a bad decision. And then in mental health, we do it with that's sane, that's insane, that's normal, that's not normal. And all of these categories are the answers that we've bought that we use to navigate through life. And it's, if you look at it, it's kind of limiting because, you cannot look further than all the categories and all the decisions, all the judgments about what's right or wrong that you've created. You always have to create inside of that box of, this is what's good, this is what's bad, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, this is insane, this is sane. And it doesn't allow you to look at, okay, so what's possible beyond that paradigm of right and wrong and good and bad? What am I beyond all that? Am I truly just insane and crazy? Am I truly just depressed and anxious? Am I truly just good at this and bad at that? Or maybe there's something different about me. Maybe there's something greater about me that I can acknowledge and discover.
And I think that's amazing because so often, especially when it comes to, and we're all guilty of it, as human beings, as people working in the mental health field, we've kind of been wired to put labels on things that that put stigmas on things that hold us back. And when you were explaining how, especially it's like, you encourage your spouse, you encourage your child to go to counseling, or yourself, because I think at some point we all need counseling and it helps and does tremendous things. When you're sitting with a counselor, too often as therapists, we are guilty of, with those labels, already thinking we know what we don't know. And the same thing is for that client, that patient, that's thinking, well, I am limited because I have ADD. And as somebody who has ADD, and you were explaining, okay, you've got to complete this task. You have to A, B, C, D. And we're so linear with all these things, with depression, with somebody who's struggling with bipolar, some with PTSD. And we adhere these labels that define us instead of empowering. And I know that it holds so many of us back. So for you, if I asked you this, because it's this, when I'm listening to you talk, I was like, this is awesome. When did that click happen for you?
Well, like for me personally, I always was different and crazy. I mean, I look normal, but you should know what's inside here. And I always knew that. And and you live in this world, and you create a job and become an adult, and then you're supposed to fit in and be normal and be like everybody else, except it's really hard work. It really takes a lot of energy to live like everybody else, or be normal or fit in, and so much gets lost, like in that moment when you try to fit in, when you try to be normal, when you try to look like you have something going on. It's really like, it takes so much energy. It takes all your creativity and all your difference that actually is a resource that you could use to create your life. And so I discovered that for me personally. And then also that was one of the things why I became a psychologist and a therapist, because I wanted to show people, hey, what you've got going on that you think is crazy and insane is actually the sanity that our world requires thrive, to become greater. And so then I was educated, as one is, as becoming a therapist and a psychologist. And the paradigm that was handed to me was more about, no, there is a right, there is a wrong, and there is a why to everything. And so I did that for a while, and then I was working in mental health, in psychiatry in Sweden for many years. I did neuropsychological testings, I did psychotherapy and all kinds of things. And every time I would meet people who came to me because of different problems, or were brought from a doctor who said this and this is the problem, it didn't, like, I couldn't see that this is really what's going on. So I asked, hey, what is really possible? What is going on for that person that nobody has ever acknowledged? And so, yes, that's where I started to turn everything around and ask questions. Because when you ask questions, things change. When you ask what else is possible, what is truly going on, the answers fall away in favor of questions that allow you to discover what you haven't discovered before when you were busy with answers. And so I discovered that wow, all these people who think they're insane with depression, insane with anxiety, insane with whatever they think they're insane with, they actually, if you turn everything around, every disability holds an ability that just hasn't been acknowledged, that hasn't been discovered. And that's where that empowerment process started that got me to create pragmatic psychology.
Okay. And so if I were to kind of throw at you, can you give me an example of maybe somebody you've worked with where you saw that flip and it was for you kind of not just liberating for them, but for you as well?
Well, I can give an example for all diagnoses. So is there a particular one that
I'm going to throw out anxiety because that's a big one with
yeah. So anxiety is something that where you think there are certain situations that you can't handle or that just overwhelm you, and you're like, oh my God, and then the heart is pounding and it's just like very uncomfortable. And so the people that have anxiety have bought the point of view, I'm afraid, I can't handle this situation, I have to be like careful because I don't know, maybe the next episode is coming soon. And so they kind of walk through the world very kind of paranoid, being afraid, and closed down because they think they have to hold themselves really tight to be able to handle the world. So they have closed up, like have a lot of walls up. Yes, right. A lot of walls. And so with anxious people, as it is with many other diagnoses, it's a lot about asking, okay, so that thing that you call anxiety, truth, is what you're afraid of, and those symptoms, what is it truly? Right. Yeah. So rather than buying that answer of this is who I am, okay, so that symptom of heart pounding, sweating, whatever it is, what is truly going on? What is it? And so then we go and look at what is truly going on. And what people usually find after, it's a bit of a process, because if you go and this is who I am, and you have bought that fixed point of view, it takes a while until you're like, okay, wait a second, there's actually something else going on. And so, but when you ask those questions, say what is truly going on, what they truly find is that they have started to interpret their body symptom as something that's actually not going on.
Okay.
Yeah. So many times your body is aware of something, it's sensing something that's going on in the situation, and you interpret it as, oh, that's the fear again, which sets you in this cycle, this same like a cycle that throws you back to the old thing, like the answer of I'm afraid. So what we do is we break that cycle of interpreting in a way that's actually not going on, because people have bought a lie. They bought the lie that I'm anxious, I'm afraid. So with those questions, we break that circle so that they can find out, wait a second, my body is doing this. It's actually my heart pounding, it's sweating. So if I don't interpret this as anxious, as afraid, what is it truly? And then people find out all kinds of things, what's truly going on. Some of them find, I'm just excited. Oh my God, I'm excited. And it's a lot, because excitement is kind of like why it's too much in our world.
Mhm.
Being too alive is too much in our world.
We'd rather say nervous and
Like,
anxious.
that's
And yeah.
if you're
We're
wrong, you're
reserved.
normal. If you're alive, and it's often too much.
Mhm.
Like that's something so many people have learned, same with ADHD, to hold themselves back, because you're very easily too much in our world. So
Have to conform.
have to behave and be normal, and not too much, and not too loud, and not too alive, and not too, because that's ADHD. And that's that. So it's really allowing yourself to be too much and not label it right away, but have that level of allowance of whatever is going on for you. And so whatever you come to when you break that cycle of that answer is, whether it's excitement, it's a new situation going on, or you have a public speech or whatever it is, you're like, oh my God, it's so exciting to speak in front of people. But most people think that excitement, they have misapplied and misidentified it as fear or anxiousness. And then sometimes it's something totally different. Sometimes it's just something that they're aware of that's going on that has nothing to do with them. Because, we're all sensing things that we don't have words for.
Right.
Often we know what's going on, and we haven't really acknowledged that we know so much, because we're not supposed to know so much.
Right. Right. So it's throwing labels on things that are almost masking for something else. We're just learning how to identify what that is. And so you guys break that down, which I think is fantastic. And I think there's so many people out there. I mean, you can't almost sit with somebody and not hear the word anxiety or not hear the word depression. And I'm not discounting those terms at all, but just when you take the time, I think, to dig a little bit and remove those layers, because we all have layers and we all have our stuff. And it is a shame, I think, about how often we do have people stifle who they are because of how you have to look externally, or how you have to act, or what you're supposed to be, in this conforming that, man, if we were all the same, life would be exceptionally boring. And we're supposed to be different, and we're supposed to, but different comes in so many different forms. And it just to kind of get your wheel spinning a little bit.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's truly what you say, that difference. It is such a gift. And then people talk about, it's kind of like in vogue to be being different, but you're allowed to be different to a certain level. And then when you truly like, too alive, then wait, whoa. Yeah. And that's like such a pity, because the world needs people who are alive. The world needs people who actually have things going on and see things differently than anybody else.
And especially in today's world, I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of heaviness, there's a lot of heartache, and you turn on the news, you listen to the radio, and most of it is negative, and it's called almost this like self-fulfillment of negative. And then if there's a overwhelming bubbling of positivity, there's something wrong with you, which is a shame. Right. So I think it's realigning things and getting the word, especially to our young people. I think of how many young people I've worked with over the years who feel held back from these labels. I am depressed, I am anxious, I am this label. I am PTSD, which it breaks my heart, where it's now saying, okay, I'm a survivor rather than a victim. It's rephrasing our terminology that I think has become almost cancerous to a lot of people.
Totally.
I mean, it's like shooting them in the ankles and then the kneecaps and saying, go run a marathon.
Yes.
What? Like, instead of saying, you know what, you can, instead of you can't. And I really dug that about, your presentation today, where it's empowering instead of stripping people down and throwing them in a box and duct taping it.
Yes.
And
we've done that. So like, it's time for something different, right? I mean, we've done this struggling and understanding why we struggle and labeling for such a long time. And we can keep on doing it. And what if we ask what truly works? What future would we like to create? What world would we like to live in? And maybe we would like to create a world that works, where we actually use our difference, celebrate them, and use them as resources rather than as problems.
Right. Instead of, well, you're in this room and you're on this side of the line, and instead of it being kind of like, we're all in this together. And I know that seems kind of like a utopian mentality, but we are all in this together. And when we, especially I think of our kids, or just elementary, middle school, high school, university, that are just, they feel so defined. And then it's the self-fulfilling prophecy. And when we as adults rephrase our words, when we as adults kind of look at our young people as not labels, as people, with potential instead of, oh my gosh, we go to the grocery store, I'm wincing what's going to happen, or, school starting and this, like, I think we do think too negatively, and that takes time, because you just like that person who struggled with anxiety for 25 years.
Yeah.
For 25 years, they've been told this is what they are. And in 2.5 counseling sessions, it's not undone.
Exactly.
Right? Which
Yes.
I always love when people think that it takes time, and we're not patient creatures. We're, included in that, but everything takes time. And so what, our last note here, what advice would you give to a teenager that's listening, or to a parent that's listening that feels crushed or defined by a label?
Yeah. So one of the tools that I love is, because you say labels are, getting younger and younger. So people, people who are very young nowadays get labels. So what used to be, oh, you're just you're just alive and you're loud, is now ADHD. It's like, there's even more labeling now than the previous generations. Like our parents, our grandparents, when people were acting out, they didn't say you have ADHD. They just said, oh, you're annoying, you're acting out. It's like, so it's very extreme nowadays. And so, and what we used to do is we're so used to listen to people and make their points of view relevant and real and make them mean something. So one of the tools I love to use to lighten things up is anytime you have a point of view about yourself, or anytime anybody else has a point of view about you, and it doesn't feel light, it makes you feel heavy, it makes you go, like you said before, you say to yourself, and you can say this quiet, you don't need to say this loud, you say, wow, interesting point of view, I have this point of view. Okay, interesting point of view, I have this point of view. Wow, pretty interesting point of view, I have this point of view. Or you say about the other person, also in your head, not out loud, interesting point of view, they have this point of view about me. Wow, interesting point of view, they have this point of view about me. And you say it as often until, that heaviness dissipates and you realize, wow, it's just an interesting point of view. It's not a reality.
I dig it. It's all rephrasing.
Yeah.
And again, that takes time, that takes patience, and I think it absolutely takes consistency. So if I were to ask you where, if our listeners are interested, wanted to purchase your book, where could they purchase that?
It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Nobles, on anywhere, and we're just redoing the cover of the book. So it's going to be called Practical Tools for Being Crazy Happy.
I dig it. I dig the title. And I'm going to leave the link, will be below in the notes. And I encourage you, rephrasing how we think, life is a gift, labels are unnecessary, and just keep spreading and believing goodness, my friends. Checking out from Split, Croatia, at the the European Mental Health Conference. It is epic, and it's a beautiful thing. Keep living life, my friends. Peace, love, and goodness.
If you enjoyed today's show, I encourage you to subscribe to Goodness Chicks podcast and pass it along to your friends. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and have a great day.